Hi, and welcome to Terry Talks Movies. It's Science Fiction Saturday again. And I've got two movies, one from the 1980s, which I was surprised to find was 41 years old, and one from the early 1990s, which is kind of forgotten. And stick around to the end because I've got a giveaway for the channel from Umbrella Entertainment, which I really like. So how is everybody? Hope you're doing okay. Hope you're surviving weird stuff that's happening in the world. We're doing fine here. It's heading into late January. We've got this weird thing where it goes from kind of cool to really hot. And then for a couple of days, it's really hot. And then we get down to like 12 degrees overnight and 20 degrees during the daytime. So weird stuff happening here. Weird stuff happening all around the world. 2025, the year of total weird stuff. So let's talk about the 1990s. In 1991, there was a movie, it was going to star Jim Belushi, but he had conflicting schedules with something else. So they got a different guy to star in it. And it's a little science fiction AI robot drama with a lot of action in it called Eve of Destruction from 1991. Stars Gregory Hines as a guy called McQuaid, who's a government troubleshooter. He's like a heavy-hitting action guy for the government, which is kind of odd because Gregory Hines was a light actor who also tap danced. Also stars Renee Sotendijk, a Dutch actress who was in a whole bunch of Verhoeven movies, including Spetters, and she was also in a really weird and wild film called The Fourth Man. It was an American film debut, and she does a pretty good job as a woman called Dr. Eve Simmons, who's created an android as a military project for the government. And this android looks exactly like her and has been programmed with all of her feelings and memories. The android is sent off on a training mission around San Francisco, just going around the streets, going to the bank, doing all those kind of ordinary things, because this android's a military weapon and it's got to blend into various urban environments as a way of going undercover. And so the android gets sent to San Francisco. It goes onto the Bay Area rapid transit trains. It goes to the bank, and a bunch of psycho bank robbers come in. She doesn't react the way the other bank customers do. One of the bank robbers calls her a bitch. In the kerfuffle, she gets shot, and that affects her programming. And she goes into battlefield mode, which means that she's very violent, and she basically goes through them like a laxative. Meanwhile, McQuaid and the real Eve, who has a son living with her son's father in New York, have to try to find Eve, and there are things McQuaid's not being told about her. One of which is that she has a small nuclear weapon inside her, which, if triggered, would blow up 20 city blocks. One of the complicating factors here is the fact that Eve 8, the robot, is programmed with a lot of Eve's memories. And Eve has a lot of childhood trauma and some very tragic things in her past. And this robot has all of the triggers that Eve herself has, which makes it really interesting. This could have been just like a Terminator kind of movie. But the fact that the robot has qualities that aren't really seen in Terminator kind of robots normally makes it a little more interesting than it would be otherwise. And Renee Sotendijk does really well at playing the two different characters. One of the ways in which the robot differs from Eve is the robot is getting all of the stuff from Eve's past and also from her fantasies. So she dresses very differently than the real-life Eve does. She dresses the way the real-life Eve fantasizes about dressing. She dresses up to look attractive. The robot goes rogue and it heads off in the countryside and it heads to where Eve grew up. And there's a sleazy bar in the area which Eve, as a teenager, always wanted to go to. And the robot Eve goes there to pick up men because that's what teenaged Eve fantasized about. This does not end well for the men because they're assholes.
One for all and all for one.
Go to it, man.
Because of that childhood trauma, the real life Eve is triggered by being called a bitch. And the man Eve picks up at the bar calls her a bitch. And this triggers the robot to go into battlefield mode.
Come on, you bitch.
Please don't say that.
Which I think is a really interesting conceit. It's talking about the way women are treated in society and about childhood trauma and about sexism and about our culture, let's say, in an interesting context. And there's a subtext through the movie which I find makes it a little more fascinating than would be otherwise. It's actually talking about things that are part of the current conversation we're having in society. Eve 8 goes on a rampage, kills a bunch of cops as well. she's acquired from the bank robbers an Uzi and a whole bunch of ammo. And this movie does suffer from that trope of 1990s action films, where the clip in any weapon seems to have about infinite number of bullets. So you got that infinite bullet glitch, where cop cars get shot up, cops get shot up, and the clip very rarely seems to empty. But in these kind of movies, there's a feature rather than a glitch. The Eve robot also tracks down Eve's real father, who has left a family when Eve was a child. She grew up in a lot of foster homes because he left. He's played by Kevin McCarthy from Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And that's kind of interesting. He doesn't actually get credit in the movie, but he's playing the character. I don't know what happened, but he has a couple of moments there. And there's also a really good scene where Eve goes up against a road raging yuppie in a BMW, who again calls her a bitch. And it does not end well for the yuppie entitled asshole guy. When she crashes her car into the BMW, that triggers another change in her programming, which sets down a 24-hour timer clock on the nuke she's got attached to her spine. And she is going to blow up and blow 20 city blocks up. And the Eve robot's next idea is to go and visit the sun in New York City. So she's heading to the biggest population center in America with a countdown nuke inside her. But Quaid and the real Eve have to track her down, and there's all sorts of pew pew bang bang stuff in New York City, which is kind of cool. And the movie ends with a climax in a subway station. This movie I liked. I like that 1990s aesthetic of action film. It's got a little more meat on the bone because of the character parts. The movie was directed by a guy called Duncan Gibbs, who started out directing music videos and was set to have a good career as a good jobbing action director in the style of somebody like Russell Mulcahy. But unfortunately, Duncan Gibbs died in a fire in 1993, and so his career tapered off after that. This movie's got a lot of really good production values. The computer graphics used are pretty good for 1991. The practical makeup effects are excellent. There's a scene where the Eve robot is dealing with the shot she got in the bank robbery, and the prosthetic work there is excellent. There's a number of other bits of prosthetic makeup stuff that work really well in this film. The movie didn't do incredibly well at the box office. It came out at roughly the same time as the second Terminator movie. The movie didn't do great at the box office in America, so the movie went direct to video in a number of markets. But I think it's a pretty honest 1990s action film. Yes, it did suffer from being in the same year as Terminator 2 Judgment Day, but it is a thing of its own. And looking at it now after 34 years, you can look at it separately from the movies that came out at the same time it came out. It's a nice, honest action film. And those character bits, where the character of the original Eve informs the way that the robot glitches, make it much more than just a killer robot on the loose film. It's not a perfect movie. Gregory Hines is crazily miscast in this film as a man of action. And there are times when the tone of the way he's reacting to various things that happen, including the fact that things are being hidden from him, is at about 11 when it should be at about 7 or 8. Military guys don't go off their nut the way that Gregory Hines does in this movie. And if there's a flaw in the film for me, that's definitely it. That total shift is something that just doesn't work. And there's been a discussion on some of the comments in previous videos where people are talking about what real life tough guys do. The Army Rangers and SAS people and people like that. They're the quietest guys in the room. They're low-key. They've got nothing to prove. They're just incredibly competent, and they're comfortable in their competence. Whereas the character Gregory Hines is playing in this is, to use a term that's usually used pejoratively about women, hysterical at times. And that just simply doesn't work. That is not a tone that's right for this character in this film. Renee Sotenbeck, on the other hand, is tone perfect in her character. She's playing the scientist differently than she plays the robot. And the robot has that really cool thing of being somewhat unblinking, which makes for an instant creepiness anyway. And because she's dressing like one of the real Eve's sexual fantasies of herself, this one's unashamedly a B picture. It's a B picture from the 1990s, which was partly made to satisfy the video market. And it does that pretty well. I looked around, there are only really DVD releases of this film, but there are a few of them around if you want to find them. There are digital copies, of course. Amazon will always sell you a digital copy of these kind of films. But it's a very honest 1990s action flick, and quite entertaining when I watched it this morning. Next one I got for you, like I said, is a surprise it's 41 years old. Doesn't seem like that long ago, but I suppose that's what happens inevitably with time. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, starring Peter Weller, Ellen Barkin. It's got Jeff Goldblum in it as well, John Lithgow, Christopher Lloyd's in there, and it's an attempt to do a Doc Savage kind of hero for the 1980s. In this case, it's Dr. Buckaroo Banzai and his colleagues, the Hong Kong Cavaliers, which I suppose they might have had to change the name in 1997 when China got Hong Kong back. One of the things about this movie, before I go into the plot and all the other stuff, is they're cramming a lot of backstory into this film, and there were comic books put out about it to try to fill in the backstory because there is just so much. There's even a bit cut out of the film where Jamie Lee Curtis plays Buckaroo Banzai's mother in a flashback sequence, and we only ever see her in the actual film as a photograph inside the jet car that Buckaroo Banzai drives through a mountain by taking a shortcut through the eighth dimension. This, by the way, is the Umbrella edition. It's the only one I was able to find, and it's Region B, but it's a nice, solid edition. It's got a commentary and a few other bits. Actually, it has got a few extras. Commentary with W.D. Richter, the director, and the writer Earl McRouch. Alternative opening with Jamie Lee Curtis, so they've actually got it in there. A declassified documentary, deleted scenes, new jet car trailer, and teaser trailer. So there is a lot of stuff in here. Original blurb. Brilliant brain surgeon Buckaroo Banzai sits at the threshold of science in his modified Ford F-350 pickup truck, boldly venturing forth into the eighth dimension. But when Dr. Emilio Lizardo, John Lithgow, devises a plot to steal Banzai's jet car and bring an army of evil aliens back to destroy the Earth, it's up to the guitar-wielding brain surgeon to save the universe. It's not saving the universe, he's only going to save Earth. Back in the day, this was a lot of fun. I remember watching this with a group of people when I was living in Canberra in the 1980s. Canberra being the nation's capital, for those of you who don't know. And there are ways in which this movie is really peak 1980s. There's a very synthy soundtrack score. There's an introductory info dump scrolling up the screen, which is something you never see in movies these days. Or if you do, you only see them very briefly because people don't have very good attention spans. And the movie starts with Buckaroo Banzai not only doing brain surgery on an Inuit kid, but also then flying off to drive a jet car through a mountain, because of course he does. He's one of those polymath geniuses like Doc Savage. It'd be really nice if Shane Black got that Doc Savage movie off the ground. That'd be a really cool thing to have in a film. And you could have somebody like Henry Cavill play the role. I'd be up for that. I would put my money on the line and buy a ticket. Buckaroo Banzai is able to drive the car through the mountain because of a new device called an oscillation overthruster, which his parents, along with Dr. Hirota, played by Robert Ito, developed. Meanwhile, in the 1930s, a scientist, Emilio Lizardo, who's very much in love with Italian fascism, being an Italian guy, along with Dr. Hirota, tried to get into the eighth dimension and only managed to get his head into the eighth dimension, where his brain was taken over by Lord John Wolfen, an exiled member of the Red Electroid race, who was exiled to the eighth dimension, kind of like the Phantom Zone, by the red and black electroids of Planet 10. The black electroids of Planet 10 send John Parker to Earth to warn Buckaroo Banzai. He's played by Carl Lumley. He was a really interesting actor with an interesting back catalogue. He was in the TV series Mantis, playing a superhero back in the 1990s. And he's also in the new Captain America film that's coming out next month. Captain America New World Order, I think it's called, where he plays Isaiah Bradley, a 1950s super soldier created by the American military for the Korean War, who has lived well into the 21st century because super soldier serum. And you see him in the trailer for the movie. So I'm really glad that Isaiah Bradley's back, because he's a really interesting minor character in the MCU. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays into the bigger picture of this movie, which I'm looking forward to seeing. Haven't seen a decent Marvel movie in a while. And I'm there to watch a new superhero film from Marvel. Even though a lot of people have jumped on the bandwagon of hating Marvel movies, for me, I'm there. I'm going to watch it. I'll review it for the channel. So Carl Lumley's in there. It's good to see him still making movies. We've got Ellen Barkin in there playing the identical twin of Buckaroo Banzai's dead wife. Her name's Penny Pretty, which is an awful name, to be honest. And she's there basically to get grabbed by the aliens and then rescued. It's a crazy misuse of Ellen Barkin. Fantastic actress. If you saw her in an episode of Poker Face, the recent TV series, she's still got game. Really great actress and should have got more roles and should get more roles in the future because she's still got the chops. But for me, in this movie, she's wasted. It's a sausage party apart from her. But having said that, the supporting cast is pretty good. You got John Lithgow, of course, acting over the top. He's fantastic in this. Him and Christopher Lloyd played off each other wonderfully as two of the red Lectroid aliens. Jeff Goldblum is in there, Clancy Brown as well, Christopher Lloyd. And the movie is just laden with references. There's a reference to the 1938 War of the Worlds radio play that Orson Welles got hypnotized to say was a radio play when he was actually seriously reporting an alien invasion in Grover's Mill, New Jersey in 1938, which of course was Lizardo and the red Lectroids coming to Earth. There's also another Orson Welles reference in the movie where the president, played by English actor Ronald Lacey, looks like Orson Welles, deliberately as a choice by the filmmakers. There's also a lot of other references to other things. Yoyodyne Industries, the company the red Lectroids formed to build a spaceship to go to Planet 10, is a direct reference to Thomas Pynchon's novel The Crying of Lot 49, where Yoyodyne was a company in that. So there's all these little Easter egg references throughout the movie. It's got a really good look as well. The costuming is great. The special effects work is as good as you're going to get in 1984. There are a few matte lines in it, but that's to be expected for technologies at the time. The design of the alien spaceships is kind of cool. The design of both the red and the black Lectroid aliens is Robert Maskey, but it's Robert Maskey in a kind of acceptable way. But rewatching it now, I kind of wish it was a longer film, or it was made into two films, because I wanted more backstory. And I wanted more about the Hong Kong Cavaliers and what they do and how they do it. There was talk of remaking. Kevin Smith was going to remake Buckaroo Banzai as a series back about 10 years ago, but that fell through. And a whole bunch of lawsuits to various people ensued. There was a graphic novel as well. And there was also a novel by Earl McRouch called Buckaroo Banzai Against the World Crime League et al. There's my Kindle copy of it. Haven't read it yet, but it's on my Kindle queue at the moment. So, yeah, Buckaroo Banzai. Rewatching it, it's kind of style more than substance. It's got very funny lines in it. John Lithgow's fantastic. Christopher Lloyd's fantastic. There's some low-key funny stuff from people like Clancy Brown, Jeff Goldblum, and Peter Weller, who I think's a little too low-key and a little too low charisma to really sell the character. A young James Coburn would be good in the role, for instance. Needed somebody with a little more presence than Peter Weller to bring the character fully to life. And because Buckaroo Banzai is supposed to be half Japanese, a biracial actor might have worked better in the role. At the time, maybe Brandon Lee or somebody like that, but somebody with some serious acting chops. And to be fair on rewatching it, I don't entirely believe Peter Weller, who's apparently a nice guy and a fine actor in his own context. I don't think he brings what the role needs to really make it work. But I'm glad I got a copy of it, and rewatching it wasn't an arduous experience. It was a bit of fun, it was nostalgia. It was silly, it was entertaining. I like the world building in the movie enough to wish there was a lot more of it, which is, not really a condemnation of the film. It's like getting a snack and wishing it was a meal. So anyway, watch that. A lot of fun. I don't know whether it's on streaming at all, but you can probably pick up a Blu-ray of it somewhere. And this Umbrella edition of it is a pretty good release. Don't know if it's still available on the Umbrella website, but you should be able to pick it up on the second-hand market like eBay or somewhere without forking out all of your lunch money. So that's what I got for you this time. 2 action films from past decades. Both of them entertaining. Both of them not perfect. Both of them with miscast leading roles. But nonetheless, they are, as I said, entertaining. Now, the giveaway. Got to talk about the giveaway. This is for channel members, for people who have donated money to the channel. And let me know if you have, because you can be part of this draw. And also for the patrons. Umbrella Entertainment have glitched and given me 2 copies of something, which I really like. I sent an email to Ben, at Umbrella and said, listen, you guys have sent me 2 copies of this. Do you want it back or do you want me to use it as a giveaway on the channel? And Ben said, make a giveaway. Give it to your people. So I'm doing that. This is one of the classics of horror cinema, one of the first body horror movies. It's on 4K and Blu-ray here. Eyes Without a Face, Lieu Sans Visage, which has got a ton of extras on it. It's got lobby cards. It's got a booklet. It's got a couple of short films that Georges Franju, the director, did. It's got some essays, including one by my friend Nadine Whitney, which is really good. And it's a solid release and quite impressive. Even if you don't have a 4K player, it's got the Blu-ray, so you can watch the Blu-ray. If you upscale at some stage to 4K, you can watch it on 4K or you can watch it on Blu-ray. This is a limited release of 2,000 copies. And just to prove it, there's the other copy of it wrapped up in plastic, ready to be sent to somebody. So if you are a channel member, you've donated to the channel, or if you're a patron, let me know. Just send me a message and tell me whether you want to be involved. For you to be involved, I will need to know your real name and your address to send it off to you. And I will send it to anywhere on this clay and granite planet. I'll do a draw at the end of the month. At the beginning of the month, I do my live stream on the Monday video. So I'll be doing the draw with a random number generator amongst the people who say they want to be a part of this on that live stream. And I will let the winner know that they're going to be getting this little package with the 4K and all the extras in it. And thanks a lot to Umbrella Entertainment for being that generous to the channel. So that's what we got there. Got a giveaway. Got a couple of movies to recommend there. It's a good science fiction Saturday this week. So thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment and tell me what you think of Eve of Destruction and Buckaroo Banzai. You can also support the channel by becoming a channel member by donating through YouTube or by becoming a patron at patreon.com/terrydogsmovies. And anybody before the end of January who does any of those things will be in the draw. Next up, we've got the Monday video, and I've got some good ideas for that. Then we get a Wednesday video. We get Science Fiction Saturday again. So until all of that stuff happens, watch some good movies, watch some bad movies, watch some nostalgic science fiction films that are a bit of fun, and I'll catch you next time.